Welcome back to the Grounded Brand Podcast, episode number 14. It's finally hot here in Alabama.
Yeah,
we hit 100 degrees.
It's the first time everybody came in with shorts on.
I know. Usually I hold out, but it was hot today. It's hot.
That's right, man.
Yeah.
But here we are.
I had to fix the AC already.
Yep. AC went out in my truck and my house.
Welcome to an Alabama summer.
Yeah.
Adulthood at its
Yeah.
finest.
Yeah.
That's right.
Tell me about it.
Can we just get back to turkey hunting and let everything
Yeah.
else just go
Let's get
away?
back to early spring.
For real, man.
Well, guys, we're super excited about tonight and the guests that we have. We have Mr. Parker McDonald with White Hawk Creative and the Southern Collective Podcast. Welcome, Parker.
Hey, it's good to be here, guys. Been a big fan of Grounded Brand for a long time, so I'm happy to share the digital, what we call it, our digital campfire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to share it with you guys this evening.
That's awesome, man. We're stoked to have you on here. I know that we've had several conversations in the past about who we would want on here when we started this thing, and your name was one of the ones that came up pretty early. So we're excited that the schedule's finally aligned.
Absolutely, that's an honor for you guys to say that, because I ain't much of a good turkey hunter, so I feel pretty good about things.
Please.
I don't know, man. You're the only one that's killed a white one that I know, so maybe we could talk about that here in just a little bit.
Let's talk about it. I would love to talk about the white turkey at some point. It's a funny story.
That's it, man.
So Parker and I met. He reached out to me in my Foot on the Head days, and I think y'all were doing like a turkey campaign and did a big giveaway. And he was like, "Hey, you want to be on the podcast and be a part of the giveaway?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And that was how Parker and I met, and that was actually the first podcast that I ever got the opportunity to be on.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that chance to grow,
Heck,
Parker.
yeah.
It's like a full circle moment.
Yeah, it really
Heck
is.
yeah,
is.
dude, that's cool.
Parker.
know that.
I think
Yeah.
Parker was one of the first like hunting podcasts that I actually listened to.
Yeah.
And I think it was the one that you was on. I'm like, dang, I'm friends with Drew. He's on a podcast. Man, he's really doing big things over there.
And he's acted like it ever since.
Oh my word.
Well, we when I remember that giveaway, and the funny thing, Drew, is there was a bunch of different brands. We didn't have like any type of turkey sponsor or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to do a turkey call giveaway every single week, and I gave a lot of people the opportunity to come on podcasts, and you were the only one who seemed to show any interest in it. And also, the other thing about it was, you were one of the few guys who makes a product and also kills a good amount of birds, like knows what the heck you're doing. And I could see that. I try to vet guests as much as I can. Like, I don't want to give a platform to somebody who is just BSing the whole time. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah.
like I want somebody that knows what they're doing. I want to be able to talk about calling turkeys with a guy who knows how to call turkeys,
Mhm.
and has some proof of it. And you were one of the few guys, in that whole deal that actually took me up on it and came on a podcast. And then, I mean, we've seen each other at
Yeah.
NWTF, that there's been that consistent connection there, and through Grounded, it's been awesome to see what you guys have done. And golly, I gotta say, man, I love that stinking Grounded logo. I didn't make it. I wish I could say I made it. I didn't. But whoever made it did a wonderful job on that Grounded
Yeah.
logo.
So we appreciate that, first off. But I
Yeah.
was literally just telling them about
Yeah,
that. I was like,
yeah.
it's funny because Parker had Southern Ground, and then I came out with Grounded Brand, and he was like, "Dang, I wish I would have had that logo."
Yep.
I do, man. I'm like, God, the pin with the G and
Right.
Man.
I could have done an SG with the pin on it if
Sure,
I would have
yeah.
just been thinking
That's right, man.
straight.
Yeah.
Dang.
But you do get to say you've got some of our T-shirt designs. So our legacy shirts
Yeah.
Absolutely.
that we have, Parker designed those. So the one that I had on the episode last week,
Yep.
he designed those. So
Those shirts were a huge success for us. That was something Drew and I decided we wanted to do back during the summertime. And trying to take a thought and an image in your mind and actually put it on paper and then get it out on to a shirt. I don't think a lot of people understand the process that goes into that. But Parker knocked it out quickly.
Easily.
Easily.
It was like one phone call
Yeah.
conversation.
And with his creative mind, he kind of redirected us on one of them
Yeah.
with the porch scene.
Yep.
And dude, that turned out outstanding. We
Yep.
loved it, and it was a huge hit for our customers. We sold a good bit of those this spring. So thank you, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for letting me do it. That shed one, the one with the front porch with
Yeah.
the boots and the
Mm-hmm.
and all that, like, man, that one hit home for me because I got little kids. You
Yeah.
know, I got a 7-year-old little girl and a
Mhm.
4-year-old little boy, and my little girl, man, she's a girl. You
Yeah.
know, like she is a little girl, and
Yeah.
she loves bright colors and flowers, and
Uh-huh.
you know, she's just a little girl. My boy is a stinking boy, and he wants to go everywhere with me. He's glued to my hip.
Yeah.
That's
But
awesome.
both of them really like to go hunting with me. My daughter loves it. My son loves it. The Hawk probably likes it a little bit more because he's a boy and he wants
Yeah.
to go do it. She just likes like the nature, and she likes the hikes, you
Yep.
know, and she loves all that stuff. So doing that, it's really fun when you can get a design that you can like kind of put your heart into a little bit.
yep.
I guess, you know,
Mhm.
I can't do that with every single one. I wish I could.
Right.
Unfortunately, I don't get to. When you get an influx of designs, when you get a whole bunch of stuff that you can't be super creative all the time, but there
Right.
are some things that hit you, you know, right
Mhm.
where you're at, and
Yep.
that was one of them.
Yep.
And both of those shirts with that series, the Legacy series, just
Mhm.
hit home for a dad.
Yeah,
For
I think
sure.
I think
Like-
a lot of people in that are hunters, turkey hunters, especially
Yeah.
our age. I think we can all relate to that because we all have small kids, and so I was just super stoked when Drew sent me over those couple mock-ups that you did. I'm like, yeah, those are gonna do great. So I was really pumped about them when we got them out to the marketplace and let the people let us know that they liked it too. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
that's fun. I like doing stuff for whatever reason. You guys probably know this. There's a poetic nature that is in turkey hunting that's maybe not necessarily in the other types of hunting that we do. I don't know why it is, but we can see it. Like, people have written books. There's so much good art. There's a lot of really good artists right now that draw turkeys, and it's like
Mhm.
there's this you guys are all, I know you guys are all believers, so there's almost like this like supernatural feeling that's involved with a turkey,
Yeah.
and with the turkey hunt. I can't put my finger on it, but Colonel Tom Kelly does, you know, like
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
Old Pro Turkey Hunter, that book. I mean, Gene Nunnery, like, he's put his finger on it. Like, there's so much of that, and you don't really necessarily find it in deer. I say all that to say, like, I get in these like around February,
Mhm.
early March, right before the season starts, and you're like, it's like you just become a poet. And you see all these guys who have been like hard butts all deer season,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden they're little vulnerable men on
Yeah.
Facebook talking about
Exactly.
turkeys.
Part
Yeah.
of that is they're thawing out
Yeah.
from deer
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
That's it.
Exactly.
That's right.
That's it. But I love the art surrounding turkey
Yeah.
hunting, and specifically when you're talking about, you know, legacies, and that's such a
Mhm.
huge part of turkey hunting.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a fun one to do. We're doing. I'm not even going to give it away. I'm working on another project with another company right now. That is kind of a series, and it's going to be really cool too. It's like another type of, like, one of those that you just really put your heart and soul into.
Yeah.
So I shouldn't have even mentioned it, but here we are.
That's okay, man. I can't wait to see what it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be cool.
For sure.
So Parker, tell us a little bit about your story. So you went from, I know a little bit, but tell everybody that's listening to this kind of your story, how you went from worship leader to podcast extraordinaire. Now you've got your own business in White Hawk. Kind of give us the timeline of all that and what transpired to make you go from, you know, one to the next.
Yeah, so I grew up in West Texas. That's where I was born and raised. My dad was a pastor. He's been a pastor pretty much my whole life, and he was an outdoorsman. I would say he kind of, it's West Texas, right? There's not much. There's
Mm-mm.
not much water to really learn how to fish. And at the time, in that part, Midland, Odessa, there wasn't much deer, turkeys. It was just pretty desolate. But hunting is a pretty big thing in Texas. So you just drive a couple hours east to the hill country, San Angelo area. All of a sudden, it's a whitetail and turkey wonderland. You know, there's animals everywhere. So we would actually come here though to Alabama and visit my mom's side of the family. That's where she was from. She was from Coleman, actually, where I live now. We would visit here, and my uncle would take us hunting on his hunting clubs or whatever. He'd take my dad hunting at first when I was little, and I remember it so well, and I wanted to go. I was just like my son, man. I was just tore up. I was tore up with anything that had to do with killing something or like shooting a gun or whatever. I loved it.
Your mom was probably like, "Yeah, get out of the house."
Yeah, she was, because I was also not a great. I was kind of a difficult child too. So, but that wasn't the question. No, mom and dad have always been like the biggest supporters of anything that I wanted to pursue, like since I was from a young age. So dad, whenever I started really expressing an interest in wanting to go, I remember he gave me he took me out. Somebody had invited him to go to their family property in Eden, Texas, which is like the heart of Texas. It's like when you watch Ted Nugent, when you watch any of that stuff, it's that hill country, exotics, you know, deer everywhere. And it was that type of place. And I'd made good grades on my first grade report card. And he told me I could go with him on this hunt. And his friend was taking his son as well. So it was like a father-son trip. And the first day we sat in that blind, I didn't know anything. You know, I'd watch hunting on TV because I was already infatuated with it, but just never got to go, you know. And so we sat in the blind the first morning. Dad shot a spike, which was also his first buck that he'd ever. It was his first deer he'd ever killed, but his first buck. And I got to be there for that. And then that evening, it's Texas. That afternoon, he shot a turkey. You could shoot turkeys in the fall there.
Oh, wow.
So we were kind of just driving around on the ranch, and a bunch of turkeys ran by, and he got out and went over and shot one. And it was awesome. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And then that night he shot an 8-point, which was his second buck. And I mean, you got to think, like, for a kid like me, you talk about just starting off in a target-rich environment. My first day, just watch it.
You're like, this hunting stuff is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is freaking cool. It's like a video game.
I know.
And so he took us on. He took me on that trip, and from then on, man, I was fired up. Funny enough, the very first animal that I ever shot at, and if guys are from Texas listen to this, they probably know that turkey hunting is not the same thing as it is in the South.
Yep.
They're not. It's kind of more like Western turkeys. They're not super respected. People don't really care much for them. They're kind of corn vultures. They eat all the corn and scare away all the deer, whatever. People
more of a
really
nuisance, I
them.
guess.
What's that?
More of a nuisance.
Yeah, kind of a nuisance animal.
Yeah.
But I remember sitting in a deer blind that day, and a hen turkey walked out in this field, and it was our last day on that trip. And Dad was like, "You want to shoot it?" And I was like, "Well, shoot, yeah, I want to shoot it." So I had his 270 rifle. I was 7 years old. I got his 270 rifle and put it up in that window. I never shot this rifle before, and I was shooting it at a tiny little bird, probably 150 yards away, and shot, completely missed, and scoped my eye and started bleeding everywhere.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah, me and Dad laughed, and I cried and laughed. I didn't hit the turkey.
Yeah.
But I thought I was thinking about it right before this season. I just never realized it, never thought about it, that the first animal that I ever shot at was a wild turkey.
Wow.
Now, I would definitely frown on shooting hens these days.
I was about to say, you might, with this story,
you only know what you know.
You
I didn't know then. We didn't know that was frowned upon.
I know,
Who
right?
cares? Turkey.
It's like people on a podcast when they go, allegedly.
Yeah.
I allegedly did this.
Yeah.
Yeah. You cover yourself that way.
Yeah. So that was when I was 7, and I killed my first deer when I was 10. Actually, here in Alabama, I killed a buttonhead, and then throughout high school, Dad he saved up and got on a hunting lease, and we killed a lot of deer. I killed my first big buck out there. I killed turkeys. I learned how to spring turkey hunt, even though it wasn't quite the same, and it wasn't, what I do now. I was successful in high school on spring turkeys, and it was fun. I kind of built a basis, and then I moved here to intern at the church at Daystar Church, which is where I worked for a lot of years, and still live here now and go to the church there. But I was the worship pastor for. I was a worship pastor for about 10 years, I guess, give or take, probably 10 or 11. And in 2020, I guess it was 2020, I resigned my position there and started my creative company, White Hawk Creative, doing website design, and graphic design, video, pretty much anything in the creative. That's kind of in a nutshell the career path. But hunting was always a part. It's always been a part, but not necessarily the content creation side of it. You know, like I did all that stuff at the church. I'd always done it, and I'd always hunted, but I just never like really put the two together. And until I guess it would have been before I started my business. It would have been in like 2017. A guy named Dan Johnson from the Sportsman's Empire podcast network asked me if I'd be interested in doing a podcast about Southern hunting on his network. And I was like, yeah, dude, sure. Yeah, that sounds great. I didn't really know, much about, I was a consumer, right? I listened to all the podcasts at that point, and I loved all of it. And I'd obviously thought about it before. But I just never took the plunge, and he asked me if I want to do it. I was like, sweet. Yeah. And from then on, man, it's just been
in your blood.
It's kind of been the thing that I do, like,
Yeah.
I started doing the video stuff. I started videoing my hunts, putting them on YouTube. And then, of course, the podcast continued on. It started as Southern Ground Hunting. And we merged last year. We merged with a friend of mine named Walter Lee, who had a brand that was primarily a Florida-centric podcast, Florida hunting, Florida fishing. And he was doing so much good stuff. But Walt's really good at the administrative side of brand ownership. Probably similar to what you guys do. He's really good at that, like, business administrative salesman-y almost side of things, whereas I excel at the creation and killing stuff. Like, I like to do all that stuff, but we decided, like, hey, we're best buddies. We were already best friends. We would come up with these ideas together and then never put them into motion because nobody wanted to step on each other's toes,
Yeah.
They're like, let's just do this thing together.
Yeah.
And so we started the Southern Collective last year in August. I guess it would have been August of 23.
Yep.
And so that's where we're at now, man. And I'm still doing the business. Got White Hawk Creative, like we talked about, and the Southern Collective hunting podcast, YouTube channel, brand, I guess. Just going strong.
That's awesome.
Trying to. Strong might be a heavy word. That might not be the word I would use, but still going. How about that?
So I want to ask you about that jump from worship, leader to, owning your own business. Was there a certain moment where you were like, hey, if I don't do this, I never will? Or was it like, because you said it was 2020.
Yeah.
So
churches are shut down.
Churches are shut down.
Yep.
I mean, I know our church was affected and
Yep.
everything like that, and everyone was. But so, like, was it that moment, or was it kind of like, hey, I'd been working towards this, and now I'm finally ready?
Yeah, I would say COVID had little to nothing to do with my exit, honestly. COVID, I guess I would have. It lines up to where it should be the most important factor in this, but I was already kind of on this. Before COVID happened, I was already kind of like, I need to take a sabbatical because I'm just not. I'm not feeling the same, and that's. I think a lot of pastors probably feel that way at some point, and that's why a sabbatical exists, right? That's why it's laid out. Unfortunately, a lot of churches don't know what a sabbatical is, and they think it's a sign that a pastor is always ready to exit.
Right.
I wasn't necessarily sure that was the thing, but after 10 years of ministry, sabbatical, root word, being 7, after 10 years, I was like, I need to do this just for my own health, if nothing else.
Yeah.
And so I did. Went on a trip to Nebraska. Freaking loved it. It was my first Western turkey hunt
outside of Texas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Texas is Western, but it's not the same. You know?
No,
But dude, I loved it. I went with a buddy of mine named Zach Robertson, who is he's the lead electric guitar player for Craig Morgan, the
Cool.
country music singer. And Zach's a super cool guy. We both killed turkeys. It was awesome. And I came back, and my sabbatical was over, and I told my bosses, like, hey, you know, we're not leaving the church. We're not exiting the church. We have no desire to. I love this church. It doesn't have anything to do. Hold off. And every time somebody exits, there's always going to be things that I didn't love about it.
Right.
But now 3 years later, I've really realized that while there were definitely things that I needed that maybe the church did wrong, or maybe whatever. It always happens. I hate to make my church look bad, and I'm not trying to do that by any means, but there's always things. But I realize now 3 years later, like, I needed it. Like,
Yeah.
like I still lead at the church. I still do music there whenever it's needed. I actually led for Easter because the worship pastor that was hired after me, they had a baby, and I was like, listen, I want him to know I'm here. Every guy should be able to enjoy that time,
Yeah.
and no church is more important. No Easter service is more important than enjoying the time when your kid's born, you
Yeah,
know?
Absolutely.
And so I was able to do that, and it was the most fulfilling Easter weekend. It's a big church, so we had like 87 services, and
wow.
you know, I led all of them, and it was
Yeah.
so much fun. It was so fulfilling. When money's not involved, you know, when I don't ever get this spiritual on podcasts, but I usually am not asked to be, so that's great.
We love
when
it,
money's
man.
involved, when money is involved in ministry, I'm never gonna say it's bad. I come from a ministry family. My dad's a pastor. If it weren't for money, I wouldn't have had a childhood, right?
Right.
I've grown up in a teepee.
You wouldn't have had a 270.
Exactly. So I don't think there's anything wrong with being paid by the church. For me personally, I realized that I needed for my ministry to be effective, I needed it to not be a factor.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been kind of an entrepreneur, always a visionary, and I think the Lord does that. You know, I don't think it made me wrong because I wanted to stop doing ministry. If anything, my ministry is more effective because I do it out of the overflow. You know, it's not out of obligation. It's out of, hey, I want to do this.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't hard, to answer your question. It wasn't like a hard change. Part of that being because I've always been a little bit edgier, I guess, than most people who would consider themselves pastors. A little more transparent, a little more open about, like, I don't really put on for a lot of people. I don't really put on a face. If I had the desire to say a curse word, I'd say a curse word, you know, like it just never, like, my parents aren't that way. My dad's not that way. He's got a super clean mouth, never says a curse word. I just kind of always have been that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so, not that my ministry couldn't be effective in a church, but it's much more effective not in church.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I love it. I do. Like, I love being able to sit around with guys who maybe haven't darkened the doors of a church
Mm-hmm.
in 15 or 20 years, and them, you know, the conversation leads somewhere, and really be able to have an important conversation. You
Yep.
know, it's a Jesus model is what it is. It's been super fulfilling for me.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, things like tithing have become easier, right? And people may disagree or agree with it, whatever. It's a personal decision that we've made to do that. It's become an easier thing because I'm not required to do it, right? I don't
Right,
work at the
yeah,
church now,
yeah.
so it's not a requirement. I will tell you the hardest thing though is now every dollar that I make is because of me and God. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like it's me and God that have. There's nothing, like, I have to work for every dollar,
Yeah.
and that's probably been like the biggest probably the biggest wake up call to anybody who starts a business.
Mm-hmm.
That lack of security is tough.
Scary.
It's really, really scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really scary. At times it can be like downright, like I've never had anxiety until I started a business. All of a sudden, like, hey, welcome.
I know, right? They don't tell you about
Hey,
that part
I'm
in the books, do they?
Yeah, I'm anxiety. Didn't know I was in here, did you? Have you seen that commercial for the
Yeah, for
the new Inside Out?
Yeah, Inside Out. Yeah.
You talk about being edgier, so I mean, I'll share this off so we can save our camera time. But yeah, when I got saved, I mean, I was so broken and stuff like that. But like, I'm the same way. Like, you know, you can see me almost every Sunday. I'm in church. Like, I got a ball cap on because like, and I know it's like a small thing, but it's also like, hey, I want someone who walks through these doors to feel normal, and I've got tattoos and, you know, everything like that. Like, I don't want you to feel, you know, like an outcast for someone who's new that might be feeling that way.
That's exactly right, man.
Yeah.
I died on the hill of a ball cap. I did. Like I would die on the hill of a ball cap because I think it's a lot more important than just a preference of a ball cap.
Right.
It's almost a shunning of something that's not sinful.
Right.
You know, that
Well, you know what's crazy is I wear it so much people think I'm balding.
Yeah.
me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
People,
And you know what?
And I've got a full head of hair.
got-
I was about to
I
say,
got so much hair.
yeah. And
I got
So do I.
much hair.
that's what I don't understand, Colton. If I had your hair, man, I would never wear a hat, ever. I'm thinning out so bad I have to wear a hat. Drew's right there with me. He needs to have his hat on tonight, too.
Hey,
but-
I'm confident in who God made me. So
I'm going to leave this in. I'm not going to cut this part out.
Well, you talk about that, man. Like I've always been that, and people would think that a hat is stupid. Like it's a stupid thing to get upset about.
Yeah.
But for me, it wasn't because I saw where people would be more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
I would people would be more comfortable. Not that church is a place that you need to be comfortable. Let me just go ahead and say that. I don't believe that churches should be super comfortable. However, I do think that there's an aspect of Jesus's ministry that we can look at and look at the requirements to be a part of Jesus's ministry team.
Mm-hmm.
Were super low. All the requirements were follow me with everything you've got, right? Like
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
like that was it. Not follow me with everything you've got and don't wear your hat
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
people, or and don't smoke cigarettes, or and don't whatever. Like it's just like a lot of churches, and my church, I'm going to tell you this, my church is not this way.
Right.
Okay. So
Yep.
what I'm saying it's not about my church, but so many churches have gotten caught up on all the little things, you know, the little dumb things, and they've lost what ministry is
Mm-hmm.
about. And ministry is about meeting people where they are, the same way that Jesus does.
Absolutely.
And I, granted, I will also say this: there's some people that I can't, like, that the way that I look, the way that I act, whatever I've covered in tattoos or whatever, I will never be able to effectively minister to them, right? And that's fine. Yeah, I just kind of have to be okay with that. But I will say, within this space, within the hunting space, I've had more opportunity to share my faith
Mhm.
and to live it than I ever have in when I'm always surrounded by Christian people.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Well, I think you're
Um,
very relatable. You know, a lot of people, like you said, you just had tattoos on you and stuff. But I think there's a group out there that with tattoos, they think because they have tattoos, they may not be able to go to the church, or they're afraid to because they may be judged. But I'll tell you right now, if I show up to a church and Parker's up there and I see tattoos, I know we're fixing to have a good worship service. You know what I mean?
That's right.
You know, I think part of it too is there's a younger generation that is starting to lead in ministry and stuff
Yeah.
like that too, that has, you know, kind of that view set, not conforming by any means, but just understanding that, you know, you have to be able to relate to people in order to make an impact
Yeah.
in their life.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I know. I mean, even my in-laws, you know, they were there the day I came home with my leg tattoo, and I didn't get a goodbye that day, but the next day I did. And you know, but still, I think it's like you said, you know, especially in this hunting space, because we talked about it with Dwayne. We've talked about it with multiple people about how, in this space, and you were talking about even before we started recording, there's just such almost a spiritual aspect of hunting and like how it all kind of ties back
together. I think a lot of it, I think for me, it is very spiritual turkey hunting. And I know I've heard other people talk about this, but for me, it's the rebirth of the woods. The spring blooms, the flowers, the dogwoods are blooming, grasses are starting to turn green. It just reminds me of the resurrection of Christ, and so that's what it's always felt like to me. But Parker, I guess to get back on track, where we're at, kudos one thing for not losing Jesus when you got scoped in the eye, and and the fact that you continued to keep on hunting, that's kudos to you, man. I remember the first buck that my son killed, I had a 243 and we could not get it to sight in right, so he's like, Dad, I still want to shoot a deer. So I was like, all right, we'll carry my 300 Winchester short mag that he's never shot before. And needless to say, he shot a doe and he turns around, he's got blood gushing down his face. And he's like, he doesn't even know he's killed the deer. All he thinks is he got shot because he's got so much blood rolling down his face. But the fact that you kept on after that, man, at age of 7 or 8, whatever it was that you were, man, kudos to you. But that's awesome, dude. But as far as like the podcast and stuff goes, you're constantly coming up with new creative videos and stuff to talk about. For us, I mean, we're only episode 14 into this thing. And so for us, coming up with new material can be tricky. It can be difficult at times. And so how do you navigate that, man? I know you're not just strictly turkey hunting. You do turkey hunting, deer hunting. I think you do some fishing as well, too. So kind of talk about that as far as what to talk about and how to film it and what your ideas there are.
Man, I think when it comes to content creation, one of the greatest things that I try to do is be authentic in everything that I do. So if I don't know what I'm talking about, or if I don't know what I'm doing, I try not to act like I do. You know what I mean? And if I'm making a claim, if I've made one big thing that I've talked about before that caught on well was using and hunting thermal hubs. I didn't come up with the idea, but I had a really good season hunting deer on thermal hubs. I killed a few really nice bucks, and it kind of caught on. And I felt like I could talk on that because I had the proof of it, right? Like, here's 3 nice bucks that all came from that same pretty much spot, right. And it's like, and people listen to that kind of stuff. So every once in a while you find things like that you can actually talk about, right? Like somebody in your group can talk about it. I mean, sometimes it's not me, maybe in our group, sometimes it's Matt talking about something. He's a forester, so he knows a crap load a lot more about acorns and oaks and different browse and all this stuff for deer and turkeys.
Yeah.
And maybe it's that, but what you have to realize being a content creator is you cannot know everything. And there are other people who do. And so what I found myself doing is like being really like pulled towards the things that I know and then I can have a good conversation about. And I'm preaching to the choir because this has been a big thing for me that I've tried to figure out in recent times, or in recent months. It's been a big thing for us is trying to figure out like, how do we be new? How do we be fresh? And
right.
And I think one of the things, there's so many, when you really look at how many people are out there hunting, there's a lot. There's a lot of hunters. We would never, if we had a different podcast guest every day, we would never run out of people if we could record with every single turkey hunter or deer hunter. So there's a lot of people out there, and every single one of those people has different experiences. And I think learning how to appreciate each of those things, and also, I don't know I'm not, you don't want to take advantage of those things, but highlight those things and tell those stories. There's a lot of stories out there. There's a lot of stories. There's a lot of tactics out there. And so being authentic is the biggest thing for me. Like, be authentic. Don't ever act like you know what you don't know, and vice versa. If you know something, then say it. Speak up.
That's right.
But there's always somebody out there who can fill in those gaps of things that you don't know. So seek out the people that are the opposite of you.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, like that's what I did. And I ended up with a new best friend in Walter, who is literally cut from the exact opposite cloth of me. Like we are nothing alike. We don't like the same type of movies. We don't joke the same. The only thing that we can do is hurt each other's feelings and not actually have hurt feelings. Like we can talk to each other so honestly and never hurt each other's feelings because it's that type of relationship. And I deeply value those relationships that I have with people who are different, because you can, I mean, that's where you learn. You learn from those people. You don't learn from an echo chamber. So does that kind of answer the question? I went all over the place on
Absolutely.
You know, it's funny because this is going to sound like a humble brag, and I promise it's not meant to sound that way. But
it is.
It's not. You know, so for people who obviously listen, like this year was my first time ever going turkey hunting. And the amount of people that have actually reached out, and I've seen it on our podcast, like reviews and things like that say like, hey, it's really refreshing hearing someone who has no idea what they're talking about learn about turkey hunting.
Yeah.
And, you know, we could have said, hey, we need to try and act like you know what you're talking about, but people will see right through that too. So,
yeah, I think
most men have a hard time with it. Most men can't do that. They can't.
No.
They can't lose pride enough to say that I don't know what I'm talking about.
That's right.
In this, and genuinely feel that way.
Yeah.
Well, I think for us, I think one of the things that we spoke about before we even started this was that we wanted to add value to whoever it was that was listening or watching. And we wanted to make sure that every episode was bringing something to the first time hunter who may have never, we had to look at it through that lens. You know, there's probably people that have listened to this that have hunted their entire life, and there's probably somebody that's never listened or never hunted before, and this is the first podcast they landed on. So that was huge to us to make sure that we were adding value to the listener, regardless of how long they've been hunting. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Providing value. There's so many things that different people can find value in. You know what I mean? Like my wife, she finds value in coming out. She consumes content that makes her feel good. Yeah. Like she doesn't want to watch a movie that's sad at all, ever. You know, you have people like that. You have people who want to listen to a whole bunch of guys sit around and tell a good hunting story. Then you also have the guys who want to talk about tactics and talk about those kind of things. And so that's where being authentic really kind of comes into play right there. It's
that's
like,
right.
Don't be the tactic guy if you're the story guy.
That's it,
you know,
man.
like.
Well, I know.
Well, speaking of tactics,
well,
listen, I like being both people.
I was gonna say, man, one of the shows that I actually watched one of your episodes one time, and it added a lot of value to me. It taught me how to kill a turkey from a kayak. So.
Check the legality in your state,
I know, right?
before going and doing this.
No, right?
I checked the legality after the fact, but I was good. So.
But hey, dude, I'm gonna say that was a pretty cool episode.
That was.
Yeah, man.
That was a fun one.
Yeah, it was.
Drew, you know where I was at, buddy?
I got an idea.
Yeah, you probably do. I would say you're probably right. You know what's funny? Here's a funny thing about that piece of property. A lot of people, I haven't shown much about that piece of property necessarily unless they've been there.
Right.
Unless somebody's been there, they wouldn't really know where it is. I don't go back. That tells you anything.
Wanted signs.
I don't think I've been back there since then. But you know what's crazy is that very spot, like, it always had turkeys for those few years. Like it was just covered up in
loaded
turkeys.
with
one of them spots, man.
It was. Let me ask you a question, Drew. Have you ever killed a turkey on that spot?
Then you showed people how to hunt it, man, and then they wiped it out.
Okay. I've run into Dave Owens on that spot.
Wow.
I've run into a couple people, and you know, that's a funny thing about filming and YouTube. Just like I try to be pretty nice about people. Like it's the nature of the beast when you put stuff out there.
Yep.
But if you ever start filming, if somebody's listening, this is like, man, I'm going to start filming. if listen to this piece of advice. People suck, and they don't respect you, and they don't. And you. The Bible says that in this world you will have trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the trouble: is that people find other people's spots on YouTube.
They do.
When I told
And people just assume the worst. Don't put anything. If you watch any of my stuff now, I'm like, I've got my camera like right here. If I'm on my boat, literally you can see like one wake of water.
Yeah.
I'm like, doing that.
that's hilarious.
Go ahead, because I know what you're about to say.
Yeah. So Colton asked me one time. He was like, "Hey, can you bring me a decal for my truck?" And I'm like, "Do what? You want a grounded decal for your truck? Why?" He was like, "Cuz, man, I mean, when I go hunting and stuff, people might see it." And I'm like, "No. People don't need to know that
Incognito.
you're hunting."
That's not what I thought you were gonna say.
We're going incognito.
I thought you were gonna say there was one episode where we were talking about hunting, and I just mentioned a geographical feature of a property.
Yeah.
I did, and he was like, "Cut it out."
Yeah.
Cut it out.
Yeah.
It was
It's
like
out.
it was like me saying like there was a blade of grass on this property,
Yeah,
and he's like, "Cut it
white
out."
oak tree.
Cut it out.
It's like our podcast is only 10 minutes long. That's like 5 minutes of it, though. Don't care. Cut it out.
Here's another behind the scenes. On one of the episodes, I said I was describing. This was my first turkey hunt episode.
I feel like this is about to get cut again.
I know it won't. But I said, yeah, the turkey scurried off. Drew, after the episode, said, "You got to cut that out."
Don't ever say scurry.
Yeah, you can't say scurry.
Yeah. So,
It's the gayest thing I ever heard in my life.
I promise we're authentic.
yeah, for
Unless
real.
Drew tells me to cut it out.
You can definitely tell Colton is a first year turkey hunter. He's
Yeah,
learned a
man.
lot this year. The lingo, the language, everything. So,
That's right.
I feel like
There's
I'll
a
be ready.
lot of language.
Yeah.
A lot of lingo in turkey.
Yeah,
Yeah, there is.
absolutely.
I got two more things that I want to talk about.
okay.
I want to hear the story of the white turkey.
Old Whitey.
Old
White
Whitey.
lightning.
The one that caused the uproar on Facebook.
Yeah. Well, so I killed a white turkey that it was 100% a farm turkey. Like, I would never. Again, authenticity wins. I try to be
Yeah.
authentic. I'm not gonna. But here's what I'll tell you: I killed it 100% on public land.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the season, like in May in
Mhm.
Tennessee,
Yeah.
like the last week of the season, no reason that turkey should have been alive. Like
Yeah.
it was a small piece of property, not necessarily hard to access. I accessed it by boat, but a lot of people access by boat
Right.
around there. There wasn't anything necessarily like if it were a tame turkey, it would have been killed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
what I'm
yeah.
saying?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
It was not a tame turkey. It was a wild turkey. So I get out there, and this was like one of my first out of state turkey hunts. And so I'd already killed a turkey. I killed one on the first day out there. And so I was feeling good about life, like, crap, man, maybe I am good.
Look
Maybe I do know
Look
maybe
at
I
me.
do know what I'm doing. I've been hunting these stinking North Alabama turkeys
know,
all my
right?
life and making
we
me
are.
feel stupid.
Yeah. They can do it.
And so I was feeling good about things. And so me and Adam Cruz met up,
Mm-hmm.
and we camped out in our trucks at the boat ramp, and then we stayed at his house some. So there was three birds this day that were roosted on this point, and I'd been hunting them, and for what they just went the opposite direction. So I'm just kind of wandering around throughout the day, and I get in this field gap between two big, huge fields. And for people who don't know what a field gap is, it's just kind of the little small short road that would connect two crop fields so the combine can get through it or whatever. So
Mhm.
I come out in this field gap, and in Tennessee or in ag properties, you would typically do that very slowly. You know what I mean? And it was late in the afternoon, like 1 or 2 o'clock, and I was being a little bit careless. And I come up over that rise, and a hen just flies off, like a regular hen just flies off. And all of a sudden I hear a turkey gobble. As she flies off, I hear a turkey gobble, and then I see a head pop up, and then this white body. I mean, he's probably 150 yards across this field
Mhm.
on the other side of a little knoll, and he just pops up, and I'm like, what the frick? Like, is that a chicken? It looked like a chicken. I
Yeah.
was like, what is that? Well, then it came up more where I could see its full body, and I was like, that's a dang turkey.
Mm-hmm.
What the heck? And it just gobbled. He gobbled in that field and chased that hen off, and I ran around the edge of that field, got up in the tree line, and heard him gobbling, but he just was going away. He wasn't interested in that. And so that was like, okay, well, I saw a white turkey.
Yeah,
Like, what the
that's
heck?
cool.
Who does that? You know? And then we went and did a podcast. Me and Adam went and did a podcast with Andy Melton. And we started talking about it, and I was like, I'm gonna go try. I've never targeted a turkey before, but I'm gonna target a turkey tomorrow. I'm gonna try to kill this white turkey. Obviously, knowing that any longbeard I see is gonna die. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna
Oh,
pass
yeah.
them.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, yeah.
Kill the white one. I didn't know where these birds were roosting at. I didn't know anything. I didn't know where I didn't know where they were living. I didn't know anything about it. And so I go the same plan the next morning, take my kayak in. Oh, that was the thing. I had actually the first day I had walked in. This day I kayaked in to get around to that long point that I was telling you about, where all those 3 turkeys were roosted at, because I was going to start there. And so I get there. There's only one turkey roosted there, and I set up on him and I watch him fly across me and pay me no attention at all and leave my life. Well, as I'm kind of focused in that direction that he flew, I see what looks like wild hogs, or like the only thing that in my mind could think of is a wild hog walking through the woods, right?
Mhm.
You know, I'm like just kind of an odd colored thing walking through the woods. And it was 2 longbeards, 2 regular turkeys, and a white turkey.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, son of a gun, I'm about to kill this white turkey. This is awesome. And so I sat there and I try to explain the spot as best as I can. Basically, there's just a small strip of woods, maybe 50 yards from where I'm sitting with my back to a cutover, a clear cut that the turkeys are more than likely not going to walk through. And they're walking in the woods towards me, and I've got about 50 yards until you hit the shoreline of the lake. So as they're walking towards me, they're absolutely going to walk through this funnel, basically, is what it is. It's a funnel. And I'm like, okay, well, if they keep walking, either they're going to walk out the way that they came and I'll see them and know that, or they're going to just walk right through here and I'm going to get a shot. That was about 7:30 in the morning whenever I first saw them. And then they started gobbling, and they would gobble to geese that were flying over the
Mhm.
water. And that would be about the only thing. Maybe like a plane would fly by. Never to my calls, though. They just weren't interested in the calling. As soon as a goose would fly over, but they just stayed in this spot. And I'm like, and then it started raining. And I'm like, well, crap, you know, like, I guess I'm gonna sit here because it's a white turkey. I'm
Yeah,
not gonna
for real.
just leave. And they were honestly right next to my boat is where it sounded like they were gobbling at.
Dang.
They were like right on the edge of the water. And so I sat through the rain, and probably like 3 hours go by, and they just stay in that same spot. And I was like, screw this. I'm about to go.
Take a move.
I'm just going to crawl. I'm going to crawl up there and see if I can just see where we're at.
Hmm.
And so I get up, I go over a lip that kind of goes down to the water. And I get to that lip and I don't see anything, and it's still kind of raining. So I turned my camera off and I was going to belly crawl to a tree. And once I got to that tree, it was one of those situations that was like, I'm going to get a shot. Do y'all know what I'm talking about? If you've
Mhm.
been there, you're like, if I
Yep.
can get to that spot, no matter which way they go,
I
I'm
got
going
it.
to freaking kill one of these turkeys.
Yeah.
I've got it. I'm in the position. And so I put my camera kind of on the ground and start belly crawling through this rain. And I take like probably three crawls and look up, kind of just push myself off. And all 3 of these turkeys are standing at 15 yards, like just literally right there.
You're like,
And they were periscoped up, you know, just
yeah.
they could see me. They saw that I was not supposed to be there. And so I just like dropped everything, grabbed my gun. They started running and I started shooting and I missed. I was only shooting at this white stinking turkey because the other ones I was like, I don't care about them. And I'm shooting and they were so close that the TSS was just like, there was no like rest, you know, it wasn't like I was jump shooting these turkeys,
Mm-hmm.
and I got to that last shot, and I let them get out about 30 yards or so, and it was so wooded in there they couldn't get up and fly.
Mm-hmm.
None of them did. They were all just kind of running, and finally that white one got kind of separated, and so I shot it, and on that last shot, and it rolled it, and it was awesome. And so I was like, the funny thing. So at this point, I'm like, I have a podcast and I have a YouTube channel, and I'm thinking like, what in the world did I just get myself into? Like, this is cool as crap.
Yeah.
Well, then upon looking at it further, it was like, oh, why does his head look so funny?
Yeah.
Like he's kind of goofy looking, isn't he? He's kind of funny shaped. He's kind of like stumpy looking. And at that point, I don't know anything about domestic breed turkeys or anything like that. I just know that this turkey does not look like any of the other turkeys that I've ever shot in my life. And so I start looking up, and I find what is a Royal Palm turkey. And I'm going to tell you, this doesn't affect me whatsoever. I killed a white turkey on public land 100% using kayak access, got great experience. If it's a Royal Palm or a real albino or a smoke face, I don't care. It was all the same. I got that same adrenaline rush that I like, oh, there's a white turkey. Like, why did I just do that?
He was hanging out with the wrong crowd. He shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
He was.
He was right.
So, I don't know, like, I mounted it. It's the only turkey I have mounted. I mounted him in like that flying position kind of. The reason I did that is because my shot went right through his breast. Like, it was just such a body shot, and it just blew a hole, and it was beyond repair. So we had to kind of angle it at a flying position where it's flying on the wall. And I don't feel weird about it at all. It being a domestic breed of turkey, because it was still every part of a turkey hunt, that you like.
100%.
It was all of it.
Yeah.
And he acted wild at the same time. I mean,
He did.
running off like that. Yeah, it was.
He did.
He didn't come up looking for food, did he?
No.
I will say one thing. I don't know if I've ever told anybody about this, because it's just not. It never comes up. After I shot the first time, he gobbled. like the first shot was, oh! Which Merriams do that too.
Oh yeah,
wild Merriams do that too. It's not really a thing, but
that happened to me this
funny.
year.
Hey, I've had several Easterns do that. Surprisingly,
Yeah.
you shoot at one and
Gobble.
miss, or maybe there's two of them and you kill one and the other one gobbles.
Or they're so locked in on a hen they could care less.
Yeah.
So.
Not very often in Alabama, but
Well, hey, if you're proud of it, I'm proud of it for you, man. So
Well, people like anytime you post anything, it's one of the reasons why I never made a big huge deal about it, just because I don't want to have to. Man, I should probably have made a bigger deal about it than I did, but again, the authenticity for me was the thing. Like, I would never want people to think that I did something that I know that I didn't do.
Right.
Somebody was with Dave in Hawaii and they killed a white turkey around that same year, and that deserves a different type of respect. It's I don't. Mine wasn't that. It was definitely a Royal Palm. Maybe it. I don't know. I never got it checked, but maybe it had some wild Eastern genetics in it. There's no telling. I doubt it. I don't know how a turkey would. Why it would go feral like that. I don't know how quickly that happens. I don't know if it's like pigs. Pigs will go feral in like 6 days or something like that. So I don't know. I don't know what it was, but I would never want people to think that I thought I did something amazing.
Right.
Or even that though, it's still kind of cool. Like, I don't know any single person that would not choose to shoot that white turkey in that position.
I would have.
yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah.
I'd have shot the
100%.
You get comments though. Anytime it shows up in a thing, I get the comments like, "Congratulations, you killed a Royal Palm." Like, I know, dude. Like,
Thank you. I'm proud of it.
I'm not trying to like
Look at me.
Yeah.
be shady or anything like that. Like, I've had people say like, "Oh, I know what happened there. You just went in somebody's. There's no way you didn't go into somebody's farm and shoot that bird, and
Mhm.
and because I didn't get the shot on film too. That's the other thing that makes it look like
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
what's this guy trying to do? Like, but it was exactly what I said.
Yeah.
It was raining and I put my camera down. If you watch any of my other turkey videos, you know that I don't usually get the shot on camera with those either.
Right.
So,
Oh well.
That's still an awesome story, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
it was
is.
fun, man.
I bet.
So in that spot, you can imagine, I had no cell service in that spot, so I couldn't tell anybody. Like, I just killed freaking white turkey,
Yeah.
And it took me like 2 hours to get out of that place, and
Oh,
I'm just
dang.
like
Exhausted.
just like
yeah.
dying to tell somebody
I
that I just shot
bet,
this
yeah.
white bird.
That's awesome.
That was cool. That was a lot of fun. Good day. I'll remember that. I'll remember that trip. I mean, I guess I'll remember killing a white turkey forever. I should never forget about that.
Well, you have
Hey,
it mounted, so be
That
hard to
helps.
forget it.
That helps.
All right, Parker. One more question for you before we go. If you could give somebody one pro turkey tip to be a better turkey hunter and to kill more turkeys, what are you going to tell them?
Oh man,
Just one.
If there's just one, I think I started killing more turkeys. Drew, you probably had a lot to do with it too. I remember that year that we had you come on, or maybe it was the year after that for another podcast. It was a very scenario driven podcast,
Mhm.
and we were doing that a lot that year. And a lot of the guys who were killers were saying things like, knowing when to go, knowing when to get up and leave, knowing when to stay put. And I think from that, I started killing a lot more turkeys because I would just find myself in the woods, like not necessarily walking all over the place, not walking all over creation. If I felt like walking, great, but just being there, even when it made more sense to leave, right? When it made more sense to get up and go, or if I heard a turkey gobble, if I hear a turkey gobble in the mountains of North Alabama, you better hunt that dang bird like there's not another one left, because there's probably not another one within a huntable, reasonable space.
Yeah, that's right.
And so you got to learn how to kill those type of turkeys. Me and Joey, we did a podcast on this, and it's should I stay or should I go? And should I stay has been the biggest thing for me that's killed the most turkeys. Around 10 o'clock, I hear a turkey gobble at daylight or on the roost or whatever. Working for a minute, he works away with the hen. He gets henned up around 10 o'clock. Man, when I find that when I'll just sit down in that general area, the hunt's not over. That doesn't mean I'm going to kill the turkey. No,
Mhm.
it just means that I get to hunt longer. Because something always happens. Maybe I hear another turkey gobble. Maybe another turkey wanders in. Maybe another hunter comes walking by, and I'm like, okay, now it's time to go. Something always happens, right? Don't leave if you don't got to. If you ain't got to go, don't leave. And that's killed more turkeys for me probably than anything.
Yeah.
It's just kind of staying put. If you know there's a turkey there, stay on him. Now, somebody in Tennessee or Kentucky or not in the South, somewhere where there's a good, really, really good turkey population, you might have more benefit in getting up and walking around and finding another bird that's willing to gobble. I don't really have that luxury as much here at home like I do in some of the other states that I go to. So here at home, which I would consider to be the hardest place that I hunt, that I've hunted personally. I'm not going to say it's the hardest place in the world. I don't know that because I haven't hunted everywhere, but it's for sure the hardest place that I hunt. And staying put has been in a place that does not have very many turkeys or has a hard turkey. It's a hard place to turkey hunt. Staying put it's killed more turkeys than anything.
There you go. That's a solid tip right there.
Yep.
And it's hard to learn, especially in our society, because we're in a culture of we want it now. Everything's at our fingertips. So learning that patience per se is very difficult.
It's patience, and there's patience in all aspects of hunting, right? Like, this type of patience is almost like it's almost like it's almost laziness in some ways. Like,
Yeah.
there's some times when I'm like, I need to go I need to get up. Everything in my heart is telling me I need to get up and go find another turkey. And so many of those days are the days that I end up killing a turkey just by staying there because I needed to listen to that, be a little bit. And that's the thing, is it's not hard. It's not like it's hard work to
sit
stay
there.
put.
Yeah.
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 Well, I feel like I've taken a lot away from this episode. I feel like I've gotten some good laughs in. We covered a whole variety of topics in this episode.
Absolutely, man.
A hodgepodge. Yeah.
That's it.
I think those are the best.
Absolutely. Well, Parker, we can't thank you enough, man, for hopping on this episode with us. Like I said earlier in the podcast, you were one of the first ones that we wanted to have on when we started talking about it, and I'm glad that we were able to finally get you in on an episode now that we're kind of in between seasons now. Turkey season's over with, and everybody's mind has probably switched to vacations right before deer season starts up. So thank you again, man. We really appreciate it. It means a lot to us.
Yeah, we do. And if you're listening to this and you've got a business idea, you need a logo, you need any type of graphic design, a website built, anything like that.
Videography, photography.
Where can they find you at?
Yep, you can go to whitehawkcreative.co, and that's my website. You can send me all my emails, all there. I also have a Facebook and Instagram page, White Hawk Creative Co. On all those, and then the Southern Collective stuff too is all pretty much the same. SoCo Hunt.
Yeah, we'll be sure to link everything in our YouTube description and in the show notes and everything like that. So if you are listening, you want some creative work done, reach out to Parker. He's got some awesome stuff. He's done work for us, and
highly recommend him.
Highly recommend.
Yeah,
for sure.
Appreciate it, guys, so much.
Well, thank you guys. This was episode number 14. We hope you guys had a laugh. We hope you enjoyed this episode.
I did.
I did.
I did.
I had a great time. As always, if you're listening to this on, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, things like that, we do have a YouTube version. And if you're watching on YouTube, we do have just a regular audio version that you can catch when you're, heading down to the beach for your vacation. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to check out the website, groundedbrand.com, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.